Hello, this is Mr. Stansberry. I'm going to take you through the 5 I notes on the standard deviation. At the end of this, you should be able to calculate the standard deviation of simple data by hand, and then also be able to calculate the standard deviation of more complex data on a graphing calculator. Alright, let's get started. So, first thing we want to take a look at here is what standard deviation is. Okay, standard deviation is basically it's the dispersal of the data. So really what it means is that it measures the difference between the scores and the mean. Okay, so the larger the standard deviation, the more widely spread the data is. And then conversely, the smaller the standard deviation is, the more compact it is, the more closely fit together all the data is. Okay, so to be able to calculate the standard deviation by hand, you have all of these lovely steps. And then it's all represented by this formula right here. But the first thing you do is you find the mean, and then you find the difference between each score and the mean. I'll show you how to do all this here in a second. Square each of your answers from step 2. Take the sum of all your answers from this here, step 3, and divide by the total number of scores. And then the last step is to take the square root of this step 4 right here. And again, this is the crazy formula. Okay, and I tried to color code it so you could at least kind of try to figure out what the heck it means. So standard deviation is, here's our square root. This crazy looking E here actually stands for the sum. So you're adding all the numbers. And then this X here is your score, and then you subtract the mean. So you're adding up all of these scores where you subtract the score from the mean, and then you square it, add those all up, divide by the total number of scores, and then square root it. Okay, and again, that looks confusing, and it really kind of is for taking a look at this. Let's break it down into steps. Excuse me, into steps, and I think that will help out a lot, make it easier. Okay, so let's take a look at example 20 from page 150. Okay, so it says calculate the standard deviation for the sample 2, 5, 4, 6, 7, 5, and 6. Okay, so here's the steps again from the previous page. So let's do this kind of piece by piece. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is let's find the mean. Okay, so we're going to add all these up. 2 plus 5 plus 4 plus 6 plus 7 plus 5 plus 6 gives us 35. Right, and then there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we divide that by 7, and we get 5. Okay. So first thing we did was find the mean. So step 1, we got the mean equals 5. Okay. Find the difference between each score and the mean. Okay. So now gets a little bit more fun. So we find the difference between each score and the mean. So let's do this. Let's do 2, 5, 4, 6, 7, 5, and 6. And then here, we'll write the mean down here. 5, 5, 5, 5 for each one of those. And then find the difference between each score and the mean. So let's just subtract these. And we get the negative is not going to matter. I'll put it on there anyway just for good measure, but it's not going to matter because we are going to square our answers, which is going to get rid of our negative, but let's leave it on there for now. 0, -1, 1, 2, 5, and 1. Okay. So we found the difference between each score and the mean. Now we're going to square each of our answers from step 2. So all of these here are going to get squared. oops, there we go. So this gives us 9, 0, not 6, but 0. That does not look good. This is 1, 1, 4, 25, and 1. Okay, so we squared each of our answers from step 2, so we're already done with the first 3. Take the sum of all our answers. So we got to add all these up. 9, 10, 11, 15, 25, 35, 41. So we get a grand total of 41, except for, oh look, crazy math teacher guy did this one wrong. Let's go back. This here, 5 minus 5 is not 5, it is 0. So that should be 0. That should be 1, that's better. 9, 10, 11, 15, 16, that's what we're looking for. Sorry about that. So we've taken the sum, we took the sum of our answers, and now we're going to divide by the number of scores. So we're going to take this 16, divide by the number of scores, which is 7. So we take 16 divided by 7, and we get 2.28, I think it was. 2.2, that's 2.29. Excuse me. And then we take the square root of that number. So take the square root of that. So we take square root of 2.29. Since that number is already in our calculator, let's just do the second square root of our answer. So I did second square root, second answer. And we get 1.51. I guess we do 1.512 is our standard deviation on that. Alright, so that's how to do it by hand. Now, I'm going to show you another way to do it on the graphing calculator. And actually many of your scientific calculators will also do this. You're just going to have to go and figure out how to do that, because there's so many different scientific calculators, it's hard to show you how to do each one. But again, what you can do is just look online. Just type in your calculator name and then just type in manual after that, and that will usually, you can download a manual. Sometimes you can even just enter in standard deviation on your calculator, type that into Google, and sometimes you'll be able to find it that way too. Okay, so to calculate standard deviation with a calculator, and in this case I've got the TI 83 plus. It's the same exact directions as the 82, the same exact directions as the 84, and the 84 silver and all that kind of stuff. So let's see what we can do with that. Okay, so first thing we're going to do here is we're going to pull up our calculator, and here's our sample. For the sample, 2, 5, 4, 6, 7, 5, and 6. Alright. So what we're going to do is we are going to go into the stat mode. So we click on stat, and you'll get this screen here, and we're going to enter this data in. So we're going to enter into, it's already highlighted on edit, so we want to edit it. And if you have any data in there right now, you'll probably, what you want to do to clear it out is highlight list 1 by using the arrows and hit clear. And then when you go back down, it'll be gone. And now we're going to enter this data in. 2, 5, 4, 6, 7, 5, and 6. Okay. So there's all of our data, minus the one at the top that you can't quite see, but there's all of our data. Okay, and then now what we're going to do is we're going to go back into stat again, and now we're going to use this data that we just edited. We're going to calculate, and it's one variable, stats, and that's already highlighted. So you push enter. There's only one list that we're working with, so you don't have to do anything else with this besides hit enter. And it now calculates our standard deviation. And there it is. Look, 1.5118 if you round that to 1.512, which is what we just calculated. So again, significantly easier with the graphing calculator. So by all means, use this. It's a handy little tool. Okay? Now also, you'll notice right here there's a little arrow that's pointing down, and it shows you a bunch of other stuff down here. Okay? I'm going to tell you what all these numbers stand for. So let's do this. Okay. So over here is our picture of, I took a little screen capture of what we had here, what we had on our calculator. So this here is our mean. So you can also use the calculator to actually calculate your mean or your average. This here, again, the E stands for sum, so that is that's the sum of all the numbers. So sum of all the numbers or the data. And again, you don't necessarily need to know all this here, but it's kind of handy to know. This here is the sum of all the data squared, which again, if you'll remember, we did all this. So sum of data squared, we'll call it. This here, this S of x, or Sx, this is your standard deviation if it was a sample. Now, if you actually look here, it says, I'm pretty sure the book has a little bit of an error in here because it says calculate standard deviation for the sample. So truly, this 1.63, this really should be the standard deviation if it's a sample. Okay, and then this OX, or this little, I can't remember what Greek letter that is. Anyway, this one right here stands for the standard deviation if it's the entire population. So if these are all the numbers, and that really is, this is the, the way that we calculate it, this is the entire population. So this really should be for the, let's change that to data, and that would make this make more sense. Okay, and there's a different way to go about calculating that. We won't get into that now. That's a bit too much for what we need right here. This N stands for the pieces of data. And then if you'll look here, look, we've got the minimum X, quartile 1, median, quartile 3, and the max. So look, this gives you all the data right here for your, this is your 5-number summary, isn't it? 5-number summary. Alright, so it's really kind of a handy little tool to use the TI graphing calculators, and it'll work on the Casios too. I'm not exactly sure how, but you can do it on that as well. Okay, so that's how you do it with a calculator. So let's